Hello and welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to tell you about a few materials before we get too far along. Not sure if you've had the opportunity yet to learn about these. First of all, for those of you that really like that plein air landscape assignment, you might be interested in getting a hold of a few of these sketchbooks. These are by the Bee Paper Company, and they're called the Aqua Bee sketchbooks. They're really cool. This one happens to be 6x6. I think they make an 8x8 or 9x9. And so, in addition to that, they have more standard sizes too. But I kind of like the funky little square ones that they have. They're fun. But the nice thing I wanted to point out here is that the paper quality is really pretty good. And it's a sketchbook. It's fairly thick. They're not overly expensive. I guess I don't have the price tag on this one. But anyway, if you like working in a sketchbook and you like working with watercolor media, I would point that out to you. I also want to point out a few materials. Those of you that like to work and be really portable, you can find portable brushes. These are made by Raphael. And I don't know if Tacoma Artists and Craftsmen still carries these. They did at one time, so I picked them up. They were on sale. They might have been discontinued items, I'm not sure. But anyway, these are great. And when I fly overseas or I'm packed sort of tight on space, these are the brushes I'll take. They perform really well. This is a little size 3 flat and a little 4 mop brush, and they're fantastic. They work great. In terms of drawing media, I couldn't remember. Now that you guys are starting to get a little bit more serious, I wanted to show you a couple of my favorite drawing tools. So the first one here, make sure you know, I didn't look to see if it had lead. Haha. Anyway, I should have done that before I started the lecture. We'll find out if it does here. It does not appear to have lead in it, but not a big deal. So this is the Maruzen drafting pencil. You can find these on Amazon. They are super nice. They're really heavy in the hand. They do take a thick lead. It's fairly thick. I think it's almost 5 millimeters or something, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And you can order them at the same time. And the thing that's kind of cool is the top here unscrews, and it's actually a built-in pencil sharpener, and you can sharpen the lead if you like to. But I really like using these for completing my watercolors, and I'm convinced there isn't lead in it now. So I'd keep that on your radar. A little bit cheaper option is picking up something like this. I think that runs about $20, and the lead's about between $5 to $10 each. Another cheaper option is picking up something like this. This is inexpensive. This is 2 millimeters. Let me get a little closer to the camera. That's 2 millimeters. And you can see it's a little bit thicker than a drafting pencil, but it just gives you really wonderful lines. So as you're starting to draw, get things ready for whatever your composition might be, it's real handy. It's nice and thick, so it doesn't get dull very quickly on the texture of the paper. And then again, you know, it's like a heavy duty drafting pencil essentially, right? So I wanted to walk you through those quick items in case you're looking to upgrade. Who doesn't need an excuse to upgrade when it comes to art materials, right? Why not? In addition to that, if this assignment is needing one more item for completion, it's an optional item. It's just a toothbrush. This one I totally scored on. It happened to be laying out on the street next to my mailbox. And I thought, well, hey, finders keepers, have been sitting there for a while, so I'm thinking somebody must have lost it. But anyway, I'm going to use it as a demo for this particular assignment. Timing couldn't have been better. I don't know. I sure hope it wasn't a trick-or-treater. Could you imagine trick-or-treating and having somebody hand you a toothbrush? Maybe a dentist lives up the street. I don't know about. Anyway, that's where I got this. But anyway, so you might find that a toothbrush is handy. You don't have to use the toothbrush. If you just want to use one of your regular brushes, that's totally fine. Okay, as previously mentioned, we're going to use just 3 colors on this assignment. Here I have probably my favorite brand of watercolor. It's the M. Graham Company. It's really nice. Thick watercolor. The binding agent the binding agent inside this happens to be honey. They're produced in Oregon, so they're basically local. And I would point out that so is the Aquabee sketchbook that I pointed to earlier. And they're also based in Oregon. So hey, I always like helping out those more Northwest local art manufacturers, and we have some good ones here. Gamblin is another one that's here. So anyway, in terms of our in our region, up and down in Portland area. Anyway, so in terms of this assignment, we're just going to work with our 3 primary colors in a limited palette fashion. And you might ask, like, why in the world we have these great palettes? Why are you making me try something different? Well, it's going to be to your benefit, I promise. So in theory, I want to show you here a value chart. And more importantly, right under our value chart, we have a color wheel. So you're going to notice we have our 3 primaries being our yellow, our blue, and our red. And what makes these primary colors unique is the fact that you cannot take 2 other colors in nature and mix to a pure primary. So if I want a yellow, there are not 2 other colors that can do that. Same thing with red and blue. Now our secondary colors being orange, green, purple, that is a different story. They're achieved by mixing our primaries. So if you take a red plus a yellow, you're going to get to your orange. If you take your yellow plus your blue, you're going to get to your green. If you take a red plus a blue, you'll get to purple. So for this assignment, that's what I really want you to do, is the vast majority of your mixing. So it's going to make you appreciate the colors you have, but it's also going to really expand and push yourself to do a little bit more mixing, okay, in the future. So that's the goal here. So the reason I bring up this M. Graham watercolor paint is in the future, you're fine now, but you might reach a point in your watercolor career where you want a little bit better pigment. I mean, I still paint with the Cotman colors a lot. They're really not that bad, those of you that got the Cotman colors in the watercolor kit. But some other alternatives, Utrecht is another one. Daniel Smith, speaking of local, they're based in Seattle. They make really high pigment watercolors, and I can tell by just going like this. It's a very heavy tube. That means there's a lot of pigment in there and not a lot of filler. And the pigment is the rich stuff that gives you a lot of color, right? And next is the aforementioned M. Graham company, also very nice and very heavy, right? So that's a quick way we can test out the quality of the paint. And I believe I mentioned that once before, so that's just for a little bit of a review. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is a Chinese butcher tray. So these butcher trays are great. They're bowed up in the center. So as they get wet, more of the diffused watercolor is going to kind of go to the edges, and you're going to have a higher chroma and brighter colors here in the center. So it's super convenient. They come in a variety of sizes. This one's kind of a medium size one. I have a larger one here. I don't know how well I can show you on camera, but you can see I use these a lot, right? So this one's a little bit bigger with some larger walls, but they essentially do the same thing. But the reason I bring this to your attention is the fact that you might find that you're going to be more interested in having an additional mixing surface. I find these often at places like Goodwill, and you can buy them at secondhand places pretty inexpensively. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow along with what I've asked you to do for your assignment. And there's some nice Charles Reed videos coming up on mixing flesh tones using just these 3 colors. And it's amazing what you can do with just these 3 colors. So choose the 3 that look the closest to what you would think of in your collection as being a pure primary. So here I have my blue, my yellow, and sorry, that was already on there from before when I was painting another time. That's actually a alizarin crimson, but I'm going to go with this. It's just a little bit more pure red. Okay, it's kind of pushing towards the orange, but it's pretty much a pure primary red. So here I have my primary colors. So coming back to our discussion here, I should be able to mix anything in the color wheel using just these 3 primary colors. So that's my goal for you on this assignment, is to do a little bit more mixing. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a super quick profile. Okay, just to go ahead and get a face going. Okay, something like that. And I'm just drawing in Sharpie. I don't normally, but right, for the demo's sake here, do something like that. Just I'll do another face. How about using some construction on plumb lines? Just real simple, you know, kind of composition. Something like this, just for us to work into, okay? So now I have some basic shapes. What I want to do is show you the effect of what we can do using these watercolor paints. So I've got a bucket of water up here. Sorry for the reach. In fact, I'm going to move that down here so I'm not crossing over on the camera. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how to mix a few of these flesh tones real quickly using our primaries. If I'm going after a Caucasian flesh tone, I'm using a lot of water. So I'm dropping down quite a bit of water here. It's mainly yellow plus red. Might have got a little carried away there, and that's okay. I'll just come in with some more water. All right, a little more yellow. And to take that contrast down, I can take just the smallest amount of blue and kind of knock down that pink contrast, right? And remember that this is going to dry a lot lighter than it first looks. Now, the first and most common thing is students want to put like a lot of white in there. I'll tell you what. Think of yellow as kind of your white. In fact, it's a lot better to use it than the white. Most watercolors only use white as a kind of opaque measure over the top here. So just a little bit. You can see I'm using a flood of water here basically, right? Keep that on camera for you. So I've got a mixture that's something like this, okay? That's better. So I just want something that's very thin, very transparent. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to kind of mix in my base flesh tone, okay? And it's really subtle. It's really light. Most students struggle on this part if they come in and they start to add too much watercolor in this first stage, okay? Now, if I wanted to, and it was somebody with a little bit darker skin, it's just a matter of using more blue, pushing it towards a green, and coming with the base, and then still using the yellow and the red, but starting with a darker tone to kind of get the flesh tone pushed down, okay? But anyway, maybe if I have time, I'll make another little demo showing you how to get into those flesh tones. Okay, so here we go. Let's just say this is my figure, right? What am I going to do if the hair is darker, right? That's where I'm going to come in. I'm going to really be reliant on the degree of color that I'm mixing. Okay, so to get kind of to a brown, I can do that with my blue and my red. And again, to be kind of careful on the amount that I'm mixing. And you can see this is why it's kind of nice to have a larger area to mix as well. So this is still very quite violet, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error. I'm going to push it a little bit more blue and so forth. And then I can get, and so this is really going to force you to concentrate on your mixtures to get your right color combinations, right? So I'm still going quite dark into that violet, but we could get there with a little bit more red adjustment. Okay, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just come in, start to mass in some purple hair. I'm painting Tina Turner. That's it. Maybe there's a little generational gap. You might have to, a lot of you running start students probably have to look her up. Okay, I'm saying I'm painting Tina Turner, somebody that has dyed their hair frequently, okay? She was an 80s rock sensation. Anyway, if you didn't know who she was. So I'm going to keep things real simple here and go ahead and come in and start to add some effects. So I can start to build from here. Refer to those Charles Reed videos that I have. Again, you want to pay attention that my paper is still pretty wet, but I would start to then come in and start to make those decisions. What areas are warmer? What areas are cooler? The areas that are going to be a little bit cooler would be like under the neck, in those shadow areas. And I'm going to play a game of warm plus cool. Okay, so I can come in here with some cool tones and just start to push that back. In all honesty, I would wait a little while longer before I probably came in and did this. I mean, wet to wet is great, but just to show you where we can start to build some of these flesh tones, right? Push that eye back a little bit. Likewise, I want to accentuate Want to accentuate the warmth on the nose. Okay. And depending upon how far you want to push it, that's up to you. The thing I want to really kind of drive home is I am not using a lot of paint. I mean, these are really quite watered down in this stage, right? So now I'm starting to get somewhere, right? Maybe I want to include a blue headband or some darker value around the hair, right? I definitely probably should have gone with a little bit better mixture there, but anyway, work with me here on this demo a little bit. Okay, but see how I'm getting these nice warm, cool contrasts starting to be developed here within my drawing. We're going to go ahead and run with that. But that's just to give you a really quick intro, keeping those values really, really light. And you should probably practice on a scrap piece of paper or something if you have that ability. Okay, now what I want to do is kind of talk about how to take this to the assignment part of the criteria from the technique standpoint. I want to see various uses of splatter effects and drip marks, sort of like a watercolor splatter stippling effect, if you will, across your drawing. And that's going to be pretty easy to achieve. So I'm going to show you a couple different methods. I'm going to switch over to my little travel mop brush for this one. Okay, so now another really fun effect you can do to add a lot of energy to your watercolor as you go here is you can think about adding some splatter, a little bit of bling to your work, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and come here, grab the red here and get it kind of wet. So I've got a little bit of red on the end of my brush, okay? I'm gonna take another object, it can be anything. It can be like a Sharpie, another brush, you name it. Ooh, hey, I like that wet to wet stuff. Okay, so now the way this technique works is you're just gonna go ahead and take your brush. Now, if you wanna protect an area, let's say you don't want this area to get splattered or whatever, you can protect it with a clean piece of paper and you can go like this. You could even cut out a certain shape. Let's say I wanted a bird. I could cut out a bird and kind of use it as a stencil kind of effect. But now can you see I'm getting this really cool splatter work? See how kind of spontaneous that is across the drawing? And that can be a lot of fun, right? So let's try that again. I'll show you how easy it is. Let's go ahead and come in with some blue this time. Maybe a little bit of purple, mix some red in there, the brush, okay? Just a little bit of water coming in with my whatever edge it is, a brush, pencil, etc. And you can create this really nice splatter. You can also just divorce yourself from that object and kind of go like this, right? And start to make these great splatter effects. How you want to use those, that's where artistic license really comes in. You might want to be a little bit more controlled. You might want to be a little bit tighter. But you can see how juicy it is, how it's already starting to look like a watercolor. I would point you towards some of Charles Reed's works, where he does this a lot in the background, right? So you might be asking, hey, come on, Dave, what's going on here, man? You told us that you were going to introduce the toothbrush. Well, fear not. Okay, I'm not going to make you floss, I promise, but I'm going to just go ahead and take the brush. I'm going to get that saturated and wet. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into my mixture up here. And let me bring this down on the camera. Sorry, you're maybe not seeing that real well. It's going to come down into the mixture here. I'm going to grab a little bit of pigment, have some fun with it, right? Get creative. So now as I'm mixing all these colors, now I'm getting closer to a brown, right? Sorry, that's where I wanted to get earlier. But anyway, now I'm going to come in with my toothbrush. I'm just going to get kind of creative, mix in some color there. So now I have a couple different options. I can get even a finer mist of splatter with this toothbrush than I can my brush. Check this out. So now I can get kind of these little explosions of color as I go across, or I can show you on a piece of paper here, right? So look how I can just get these kind of little splatter marks. I'm going to start talking like Bob Ross when I do that. Little happy accidents, right? Anyway, so, but look at this kind of explosion of like little splatters and color that I can get with the toothbrush. So here's the deal. I want to create like a texture, sand, an old building, something that feels aged. This technique works great, right? It also works really well for just going in and figuring out how to put a little bit of energy into your work. So that's my quick demonstration in terms of the splatter, how to get started with some facial tones. Just to review really quick, there's so many cool art products out there, from these little Raphael travel brushes Okay, the Maruzen or other brand drafting pencils of various widths, I would say start with 2 millimeters and go up. I think these go way up to something like 10 or 12 mm's rather. But the 2 millimeter is really great, and I really like this. I think it's 4.5 or something diameter, and then there's a really big one that's about size 12, and it can be so much fun to kind of lay down these pencil marks. That's generally how I work. I'm just using Sharpie as previously mentioned, so you can see what's going on. You might want to contemplate again picking up something like an Aquabee sketchbook for your collection. And a ratty old toothbrush. Don't forget about that, huh? Anyway, I wouldn't brush with that guy. Some of your paints can actually be a little bit carcinogenic, so I wouldn't recommend using that with your continued brushing of your teeth here. So okay, so that's what we're going to do. Stick with these three colors. Those of you looking to upgrade, I would push you towards M. Graham. There's nothing wrong with Winsor Newton brushes. Whoops. You can see I'm at a slant here, sorry. And the Daniel Smith, just for review, another good brand to go with. Okay, I hate to go too long. Want to keep your interest going there. So I hope that's getting you excited. Check this out. Look what's happening with the splatter effects and stuff over time. As it starts to dry, you're going to get these really cool effects. Maybe I'll post a picture or painting of mine along this module somewhere to show you how I use this. I use this technique a lot just to try to increase the action and excitement to the viewer. And you can see I've used hardly any paint here and laying down those flesh tones, but it's already starting to dry, getting these little warm, cool transitions, and it's starting to look a lot more like natural skin tones. So, okay, I'm gonna leave it there, my friends. Sure appreciate all your hard work. Have fun. Hope you're enjoying the class. I sure enjoy seeing you when you join on the Zooms, and all my best. Take care, work hard, have fun. Bye-bye.